There once was a little boy named Arthur Miller. He was a normal little boy, except he had one big problem. He kept finding dismembered body parts around town. He didn't like finding these things, but he just had a knack for seeing them. Unfortunately, because of this strange talent, the other kids liked to pick on him. One kid in particular really enjoyed beating up poor Arthur. His name was Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck would wait outside the school every day until Arthur came along, and then he would punch him right in the gut and steal whatever Arthur had found that day. So far, Gregory had a collection of 6 ears, 9 fingers, and what he thought was a nose. One day, after his usual beating, Arthur decided he would finally tell his parents about what was happening. "Mother? Father?" he called, but he was alone, which is when he found a door in his hallway that had never been there before. He figured his parents must have put it in while he was at school. Arthur opened the door and he walked down the stairs that he found on the other side. The stairs kept going down, 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 until he came to a large cavern hung with many red curtains. He peeked behind one, but could only see darkness and hear a terrible sound. It reminded him of how his father had sounded once when he was choking and struggling to breathe. Arthur kept going until he came to another door. It looked exactly like the door that led into his parents' bedroom. He opened it carefully. It is never a good idea to burst in on your parents, and he was surprised to see that it actually did lead into his parents' bedroom. He could even hear his mother showering and his father brushing his teeth. How strange, he thought. I must have been hit so many times that I imagined the stairway and the room with the curtains. He was about to call out to his parents when he saw something on the nightstand. He went over and carefully picked it up. It felt strangely soft, and then he realized that it was a mask of his father's face. Suddenly, his father called out from the bathroom. "Hello? Is someone in there?" And before he could be discovered, Arthur took the mask, which felt exactly like skin, and he ran out of the room. He ran down the hallway and up the stairs into his real house, which is when he looked at the mask again. And there was no doubt about it. This was his father's face, with the same mole on the cheek and the mismatched eyebrows. Arthur ran into the street. He needed to find someone who could help him, but the only person out there was his bully, Gregory Peck. "What do you got there, Arthur?" Gregory said, snatching the mask from his hands. "Wow, a mask." And then, to Arthur's horror, Gregory put it on, over top of his own face, and for a minute, he looked exactly like Arthur's father. And then he punched Arthur so hard that Arthur's eyes crossed and he couldn't stand up anymore. Arthur fell down and he passed out from the pain. When Gregory realized what he'd done, he jumped to Arthur's side and started shaking him. Arthur, wake up, I didn't mean to hit you that hard." But Arthur wasn't waking up. Gregory started to get very worried. This hadn't happened to him before. He was just about to go find a policeman when suddenly, Gregory Peck woke up. He was in a hospital. His father, who owned a lumber mill, was telling him he'd been beaten up by someone, but they didn't know who. "Who beat you up?" his father asked him, but Gregory had no idea. However, Gregory was more worried about Arthur. Do you know what happened to Arthur? But nobody did. In fact, nobody knew about Arthur at all. It was like he didn't even exist. When Gregory was let out of the hospital, he went to Arthur's house. But instead of the usual house, it was an empty lot. A woman with a log approached and told him there had never been a house there. Gregory went back to school. He asked about Arthur, but nobody knew who he was talking about. Without Arthur, Gregory wasn't a bully anymore. He was just a normal kid. He wasn't really good or bad at anything. And if he wasn't always asking around for Arthur, the other kids probably wouldn't have even known he existed. Gregory started looking for body parts in the grass, and one day he found a toe. The same day, while sitting in mathematics class, he noticed that his teacher's face was starting to slip a little bit. He wondered if she had also lost a toe earlier that day. When the other kids found out that Gregory was collecting body parts, they started to beat him up too. One boy, Scott Stevens, really started beating him up a lot. Gregory was miserable. He wondered how long he could keep going like this. Then, one day, a kind old man came to the school to give a talk about transcendental meditation. The old man said it would help settle your mind and expand your consciousness. Plus, it made bad feelings like anger and confusion feel much, much less. He led the entire school through an exercise where they closed their eyes and imagined themselves inside a calm, red room. Gregory pictured himself in the room with its red curtains hanging all around him. Then, he peeked at a point between the two curtains. Not directly behind the curtains, but in the space between them. And in that moment, he witnessed the infinite expanse of pure consciousness. Gregory slipped into this space and floated, serene and finally happy. He didn't worry about Arthur or Scott Stevens or about the people in his community that were wearing masks and losing body parts. Instead, he felt a oneness that transcended all things. Finally, Gregory Peck was happy. The end.